You are about to come into contact with one of the most intriguing documents ever produced by the United States government. This is a file that remained hidden for decades, and when it finally came to light, it generated no alarm whatsoever. No headlines, no official statements, no press conferences, just another mysterious document lost among thousands of declassified pages waiting to be discovered. This file, known as the Gateway Process, goes far beyond a simple intelligence report. Its content is deep and unsettling, challenging everything we think we know about reality. It suggests that time and space may be mere illusions generated by the human mind, and that consciousness may be the key to accessing dimensions that go beyond our understanding. But what would have led the CIA to investigate this matter? And even more intriguing, what secrets did they discover that they preferred to keep hidden? This story begins in one of the most tense periods of the Cold War, an era marked not only by the dispute between the United States and the Soviet Union for military dominance, but also by a silent competition for something even more valuable. Since the 1950s, the CIA has shown a significant interest in unraveling the mysteries of human consciousness. One of the darkest examples of this quest was the infamous MK-Ultra program, a series of brutal experiments conducted by American scientists. Through the use of psychedelic drugs, sensory deprivation, and hypnosis, the objective was clear: to manipulate and control people's minds. The project sought to develop perfect secret agents, selectively erase memories, and even create methods to influence individuals from a distance. However, the Gateway Process went further. While MK-Ultra focused on mental domination, this new CIA initiative explored something even more ambitious: the unlimited potential of the mind when freed from the restrictions of the body and the physical world. In the official report, Lieutenant Colonel Wayne McDonnell describes a process by which human consciousness could transcend the barriers of time and space, accessing a deeper and unknown reality. The study was carried out in partnership with the Monroe Institute, an organization specializing in the research of altered states of consciousness. But what exactly could this method reveal? The answer to this question lies at the heart of the report. The Gateway Process was based on a phenomenon called hemispheric synchronization, also known as Hemi-Sync. This technique used specific sound frequencies to synchronize the brain hemispheres, allowing the mind to operate in a state of total coherence. According to the document, this alignment could lead to extraordinary abilities, such as out-of-body experiences, access to hidden information, and even the ability to influence the surrounding reality. Why then would the CIA be interested in something that resembles a science fiction script? The answer is simple: power. Imagine an agent capable of visualizing secret locations without needing to be physically present, or someone who could anticipate events with almost supernatural accuracy. The Gateway Process was not limited to a spiritual quest. It represented a path to achieve absolute control over what we call reality. There is an intriguing detail that cannot be ignored. The Gateway Process was not an isolated experiment. At the same time, other secret projects, such as the Stargate project, were also receiving funding from the United States government. Stargate investigated phenomena such as remote viewing, an ability in which individuals were able to describe distant locations and events without ever having been physically present in those places. Despite being controversial, the results were surprising. Study participants were able to report with unbelievable accuracy details of highly secret Soviet military bases. This raises a disturbing question. Is there something here that conventional science has not yet been able to fully explain? The CIA report suggests that there is. According to the document, reality may be much more flexible than we imagine, and human consciousness may be the key to manipulating it. Although this idea seems revolutionary, in fact, it is not so new. Eastern philosophies have been discussing for centuries the idea that the material world is nothing more than an illusion. The Hindu concept of Maya, for example, describes physical reality as a projection of the mind, a deception of the senses. But what was once just a spiritual belief has now been taken seriously by scientists and military strategists. If these discoveries could transform our understanding of the universe, why were they kept secret? Why did they bury this information for so long? The answer may be uncomfortable. Knowledge is power. If humanity understood that reality can be shaped and that the mind has an unexplored potential, the control structures that govern the world, whether in politics, economics, or religion, could collapse. Everything we consider immutable would be questioned. Now, however, this knowledge is finally coming to light. And most importantly, we can use it. But how exactly does the gateway process work? Can anyone develop these abilities? Prepare yourself, because the answers may challenge everything you thought you knew about the human mind. What if I told you there is a technique capable of unraveling the deepest secrets of the human mind? Something that does not belong to the realm of fiction or superstition, but was studied and documented by the United States military itself? The gateway process was not just an experiment. It may be the key to expanding consciousness beyond the limits of the reality we know. This may seem like an exaggeration, but it is not. The official CIA report describes a method that allows the human mind to transcend space and time. And we are not talking about lucid dreams or simple meditative practices, but something much deeper, a state of consciousness in which the impossible becomes accessible. But how does this process work? How can a set of techniques transform the mind into a gateway to other dimensions? The answer begins with a scientific concept known as hemispheric synchronization, or Hemi-Sync. Our brain is divided into two hemispheres, the left associated with logical thinking, analysis, and reasoning, and the right responsible for creativity, intuition, and emotions. Normally, these two parts operate independently, each fulfilling its function. However, when they come into perfect alignment, something extraordinary happens. This phenomenon, called brain coherence, not only optimizes brain performance, but can also open doors to states of consciousness that go beyond our understanding. And this is exactly where the secret of the gateway process lies: the use of binaural beats. If you have not heard about this yet, prepare yourself, because this concept can change your perception of mind and consciousness. Binaural beats are sound frequencies specially designed to induce specific states in the brain. The operation is simple. A tone is emitted in one ear, and a slightly different tone is sent to the other. The brain, in trying to balance this difference, internally generates a third frequency. It is this frequency that induces deep states of consciousness. For example, imagine that a sound of 200 Hz is sent to one ear, while the other receives one of 210 Hz. Your brain not only processes the two sounds, but also creates an additional tone of 10 Hz. This third tone is not a simple noise, but rather an adjustment in brain waves that can lead to states of deep meditation, increased concentration, and even experiences of projecting consciousness beyond the physical body. But this idea is not based only on theory. Science has already demonstrated that the human brain operates in different frequency ranges, and each of them is directly associated with a specific mental state. In the beta state, between 13 and 30 Hz, we are alert, in full mental activity, dealing with daily tasks and rational thinking. In the alpha state, between 8 and 12 Hz, we experience light relaxation, like an initial phase of meditation. By further reducing the frequency, we enter the theta state, between 4 and 7 Hz, where dreams, deep intuition, and access to pure creativity occur. And finally, in the delta state, between 0.5 and 3 Hz, we plunge into deep sleep, mental regeneration, and contact with the subconscious. Our brain is constantly alternating between these frequencies, and understanding this process can completely transform the way we explore our own potential. Now we come to a truly surprising point. The gateway process uses binaural beats to induce deep brain states of theta and delta, but without the person losing consciousness. In other words, it is possible to enter a mental state that normally only occurs during deep sleep while maintaining total lucidity. Think about this for a moment. What if it were possible to explore the mind at this level? If we had access to repressed memories, developed psychic abilities, or even managed to transcend the limits of the physical body. According to reports from individuals who participated in these experiments, this is exactly what happened. Some of these people described extreme lightness, as if their bodies had ceased to exist. Others reported a deep connection with something much greater, a sense of unity with the universe. There were even those who claimed to have accessed information they should not have known, as if they were extracting knowledge directly from a collective consciousness or a universal field of information. But before we move further, an essential question arises. Why did the CIA invest so much in this process? The answer is simple and at the same time disturbing: control. If the mind can be trained to access hidden realities, predict future events, and even influence the matter around it, then this knowledge becomes more valuable than any military technology. This means that whoever masters the mind, in the end, masters reality itself. Now pay attention to this. The CIA not only documented these phenomena, but also tried to apply them in military intelligence operations. One of the most intriguing examples was Project Stargate, in which soldiers were trained in remote viewing techniques to describe strategic locations without ever having been there physically. And the results were impressive. Program participants were able to report precise details about Soviet military installations, even without any prior physical or visual access. In some cases, the events described were confirmed years later. This raises a fundamental question. Can the human mind really access information beyond the limits of the physical senses? If this is true, it means that we have been conditioned to underestimate our own potential. But there is something even deeper to consider. If the mind can be trained to access hidden information, can it also be trained to shape reality itself? This implies that thought is not just an internal phenomenon, but a real force capable of interacting with the external world. And here is the most important detail. Anyone can learn to do this. The gateway process remained hidden from the public for decades, but now the truth is emerging. And in the next chapter, we will explore what may be the most disturbing revelation of all. What if reality is just an illusion, and the mind is the key to rewriting it? What do you define as reality? That which you see, touch, feel? Everything around you seems solid and unquestionable. But what if this solidity were nothing more than an illusion? The CIA's confidential document on the gateway process suggests something that can completely transform your perception of existence. Reality may not be fixed, but rather a projection, a hologram shaped by the mind itself. If this idea sounds absurd at first, know that it does not come from mystics or science fiction writers, but from science itself, more specifically, quantum physics. Think about how a hologram works. If you break it into pieces, each fragment will still contain the entire image, only on a smaller scale. Now apply this concept to the universe. The CIA report suggests that reality follows the same principle. Each portion of the cosmos reflects the whole. This means that you, I, and all beings are connected to a single universal consciousness. Our mind not only witnesses reality, but actively contributes to its creation. And this is not just a philosophical notion. There are scientific bases that support this possibility. Physicist David Bohm, one of the most respected names in quantum mechanics, proposed that the universe could be a dynamic hologram where everything is interconnected, even if our senses do not directly perceive this connection. But if this is true, what would be the role of the mind in this mechanism? This is where the question becomes even more intriguing. The gateway process suggests that human consciousness can directly interact with this holographic structure. According to the document, time and space would be mere creations of consciousness processing. Now stop and think about this. What if time is not linear as we have always believed? What if past, present, and future coexist simultaneously? If this is the case, then accessing lost memories, predicting events, or even changing them may not be as impossible as we imagine. Now I ask you, what if your mind has the power to influence this projection that we call reality? What if, with the right training, you could modify your perception of time, expand your consciousness, and access information that at first glance would seem unattainable? Participants in the gateway process reported experiences that defy any conventional explanation. Some described a total connection with the universe. Others claimed to have experienced the sensation of being out of their own bodies. There were even reports of interactions with higher forms of consciousness. If this is real, then perhaps it explains why this information remained hidden for so long. After all, if consciousness can shape reality, what would happen to the power structures that govern the world? If each individual were able to create their own reality, then who, in fact, would be in control? The question, therefore, is not whether this is true. The real question is, how can we use this knowledge to transform our lives? If reality works like a hologram, as we have already explored, then our consciousness is not restricted to the physical body. This suggests that the mind can overcome spatial barriers, access distant information, and even interact with other dimensions of existence. As incredible as it may seem, CIA documents state that these phenomena were tested and recorded. Researchers responsible for the gateway process discovered that by inducing altered states of consciousness through hemispheric synchronization, participants experienced something known as consciousness projection. In other words, their perception expanded beyond the physical body. If this idea seems familiar to you, it is not mere coincidence. The concept of a mind capable of freeing itself from the limitations of the body and exploring other realities is found in various ancient spiritual traditions, from shamanic rituals to the practices of Tibetan monks. However, the CIA was not interested in these spiritual aspects. The goal was to understand how this ability could be applied practically. It was in this context that remote viewing experiments emerged. If you have never heard of this, pay attention, as this was one of the United States government's most ambitious initiatives to use psychic abilities as espionage tools. Project Stargate, conducted by the American Army during the same period as the gateway process, trained agents to describe locations and events thousands of miles away without ever having been physically present in those places. The results were surprising. In one test, one participant was able to accurately describe a Soviet military base that he had never seen. In another case, a soldier predicted an event that only happened weeks later. This raises a disturbing question. Is the human mind capable of accessing information that transcends the limitations of time and space? The gateway process suggests that it is. According to the documents, as participants reached more advanced states of consciousness, many reported the sensation of floating outside the body. They also said they accessed a vast field of universal knowledge, something that some spiritual traditions call Akasha, a kind of record containing everything that has already happened and everything that will still happen. Now think about the implications of this. If consciousness can project itself outside the body and access information beyond physical limitations, it means that the mind is not confined to the brain. It means that what we call self may be much broader than we imagine. And more, this raises one of the deepest questions of existence. If consciousness can exist independently of the body, then death, at least as we conceive it, may not be the end. The reports of the experiment participants reinforce this hypothesis. Many described encounters with entities that seemed to be outside time and space, experiences they considered more real than everyday reality itself. Now the big question is, was all this just a product of the imagination? Or did they really access something beyond conventional understanding? If the mind is capable of transcending the limits of the physical body, traveling through unknown realities, and accessing hidden knowledge, then what are the true limits of what we can achieve? What if everything we know about time is wrong? Since childhood, we have learned that it follows a continuous line. The past has already happened, the present is now, and the future is yet to come. But what if this idea is just a mental construct? The Gateway Process documents present a surprising revelation. Time and space are not absolute realities, but rather patterns created by consciousness to organize information. Although this claim may seem absurd at first glance, even modern science is beginning to point in this direction. Einstein's theory of relativity has already demonstrated that time is not fixed. Its passage can accelerate or decelerate depending on the gravity and speed of an observer. In other words, two people in different locations can experience time in completely different ways. However, what the Gateway Process suggests goes further. According to the documents, time is a mental construct and, in altered states of consciousness, it is possible to transcend this illusion. And this is where things start to get really intriguing. During the experiments, several participants reported the sensation of being in multiple temporal moments simultaneously. Some described past events with impressive clarity, while others had visions of future events that were later confirmed. This leads us to a disconcerting question. If time can be accessed in this way, does it exist as we imagine? Quantum mechanics has already revealed that, at its most fundamental level, reality does not follow a predictable linear flow. The famous double-slit experiment demonstrated that simple observation can alter the behavior of particles. In other words, the future can influence the past. If this is true, time is not an inevitable course, but rather something malleable by consciousness. Now think about the impact of this. If time is just an illusion, it means that your past, present, and future may be occurring simultaneously. This suggests that your mind has the ability to access moments that have already passed or that are yet to come. CIA documents indicate that with proper training, it is possible to use this knowledge to obtain information beyond what we can normally access. This would explain phenomena such as déjà vu, premonitions, and even psychic abilities. But what if time is an illusion? And space too? Physicist John Wheeler proposed that the universe may not be composed of matter, but rather of information. This would imply that the separation between objects may not be as real as we think. If the Gateway Process is correct, the human mind can overcome these barriers, which would explain the remote viewing experiments conducted by the CIA, in which individuals were able to describe distant locations without ever having been there physically. Now I ask you, if time and space are just constructs of the mind, what does this mean for the way we live? Are we trapped in an illusion generated by our own perception? And more importantly, if we have the ability to access time and space in ways we never imagined, how can we use this knowledge to transform our reality? If the mind has the power to shape reality, how can we use this to our advantage? Until now, we have explored how the Gateway Process revealed surprising secrets about time, space, and consciousness. However, these discoveries only make sense if we know how to apply them in everyday life. After all, what is the point of understanding that the mind can access hidden dimensions and influence reality if we continue to live in exactly the same way? What you are about to discover may be the key to real change. You are not a spectator of reality. You create it. The first thing to understand is that reality does not happen to you, but rather because of you. If the universe operates as a hologram, as suggested by the CIA documents, then your mind is not just a passive observer, but an active agent in creating the experience. This means that what you visualize with intensity has the power to reconfigure your brain to make that vision a concrete reality. And this is exactly where the gateway process becomes useful. Use brain synchronization to your advantage. One of the most intriguing revelations of the CIA document is that the ideal mental state to access other realities occurs when the brain hemispheres are in perfect harmony. The good news? This synchrony can be induced simply through binaural beats, audios that use specific frequencies to balance brain activities. Just put on your headphones, relax, and allow the sound waves to do their job. The benefits range from increased creativity and intuition to a significant reduction in stress and the achievement of deep states of meditation. Now imagine incorporating this practice daily to reprogram your mind and open doors to new possibilities in your life. The power of creative visualization. Gateway process. Studies indicate that our thoughts are not mere passing abstractions, but rather energy interacting directly with the universe. And science already confirms this. By visualizing something vividly and emotionally, the brain begins to build new neural connections that prepare the body and mind to make that experience real. Want to apply this in your daily life? Here is a practical and effective method. 1. Close your eyes and visualize your goal as if it has already been achieved. 2. Access the emotion of this achievement in the present moment. If it is money, feel the joy of abundance. If it is health, feel your body full of vigor and vitality. 3. Maintain this mental image for at least 30 seconds daily. The more you repeat this process, the more your subconscious will accept this reality as truth, accelerating the manifestation of these changes in your life. Redefine your perception of time and space. If time is not linear and the future already exists, how can we use this concept to accelerate transformations? Simple. Stop seeing your dreams as something distant. Instead of saying, "One day I will be successful," start acting and feeling as if success is already part of your life now. Your brain will respond by creating the necessary paths to make this reality tangible. Another powerful practice is communication with your future self. Imagine that a successful version of you already exists and can send answers to your present. Ask yourself mentally, "What do I need to do now?" And notice what insights arise in your mind. If this idea seems strange to you, remember, the United States government itself invested millions of dollars to study and test these abilities. Now here is a final reflection. If anyone can learn to shape their own reality, why was this knowledge hidden for so long? If this became accessible to everyone, what would happen to the power structures that govern the world? If an official CIA document states that the human mind can transcend time and space, access knowledge beyond the physical, and even influence reality, why was this information kept hidden for so long? The answer to this question may be deeper and more disturbing than we imagine. The gateway process was not just a study on altered states of consciousness. It revealed something that could completely redefine the power structures in society. If the human mind has the ability to explore other realities, influence the external world, and even predict future events, it means that anyone, anywhere in the world, can access this potential without needing governments, religions, or institutions to mediate this process. Now, reflect. Who would lose control if this knowledge became widely accessible? If everyone knew that they could modify their reality just by adjusting their perception and intention, what would happen to the systems that govern us? The financial elite, governments, and organized religious institutions are sustained precisely by the limitation of collective consciousness. The world has been programmed for you to believe that you need to fit into a rigid system, work tirelessly, and follow rules imposed by others to survive. But what if all of this is a big illusion? If the information contained in this document is real, then the greatest lie ever told to humanity is that we are powerless in the face of reality. The proof that this knowledge was dangerous for those who hold power lies in the fact that it was deliberately hidden. Despite being declassified in 2003, its dissemination was minimal. No major headlines in the media, no official statements. It was simply filed in a government database, waiting to be found by chance. And even today, few people have even heard of it. But why? Because this information grants power to those who know how to use it. When you understand that your consciousness has the potential to shape your own reality, you cease to be a passive spectator and become an active creator. And this change of perspective alters everything. The big question now is, what will you do with this knowledge? The Gateway process is not just a document lost in the CIA archives. It is a true map to a new perception of reality. You can ignore all this and continue living as you have always lived, or you can apply these discoveries and begin to explore the true power of your mind. The choice is yours. Matrix transmission ended.